Welcome to the story of Woman at the Well. This story is from the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verses 5 through 42. The lesson focus for grades 5 and 6 is, Jesus is the living water. All four Gospels tell of the hostility between Jews and Samaritans. Jews thought Samaritans were wrong in their religious beliefs and practices. It would not be too strong to say that Jews and Samaritans were enemies. But only in the Gospel of John do we hear of Jesus going into Samaritan territory on purpose. His travel and subsequent stay in Sychar in the story was not only surprising, but scandalous. There are three themes we can explore in this story. The first main theme is that Jesus is the living water. Jesus' conversation with a Samaritan woman begins with water understood as a drink. It ends with it understood as living water. Jesus is the living water because he brings life to the world. He brings God to the world, all of the world. Jesus came for everyone. The second main theme is true worship. Jews and Samaritans did not agree about where to worship God. Samaritans worshipped on Mount Gerizim, whereas Jews saw Jerusalem as holy. Jesus says that true worship is not a place, it is a person, it is Jesus. The third main theme is discipleship. A disciple, even a new one like the Samaritan woman, invites others to come and see. A disciple's job is bringing others to Jesus. Jesus came for all people everywhere. This means that disciples often find themselves in a diverse community, as this story illustrates. We miss a little of the scandal of this story. That Jesus would sit and talk to a Samaritan woman for most of a chapter is astounding. The point of him doing so is also scandalous. This story shows us that Jesus came for everyone. Jesus teaches about God's love. He brought God's love to the whole world, no exceptions. Jesus loves us no matter who we are. It's sometimes hard to believe and remember this. It's also sometimes difficult to act on this knowledge. As Jesus' followers, we are called to spread the word about Jesus and invite others to come and see, just like the Samaritan woman did. We can all drink of the living water. We can all drink of Jesus' love. Jesus is the living water. Even though they may not always voice them, your kids have lots of questions. Consider setting up a question box in your classroom where kids can submit questions they have. Or you can set aside question time each week in your class where kids can ask questions aloud or write down questions and pass them in to be read anonymously. Enjoy your role as spiritual mentor, and don't be worried if you don't have all the answers. If it's a theological question, feel free to say, "Let me ask our pastor and I'll tell you the answer next week." Kids this age are filled with insecurity, and often that insecurity will manifest itself in anger. Instead of solely scolding a child for showing anger, take some time to ask questions about where that anger came from. You can help kids begin to learn where their anger comes from and how to deal with it appropriately. This lesson uses salty crackers as a way of creating thirst in kids. Be aware of any kids in your class who may have a gluten allergy, and be sure to provide a gluten-free alternative such as rice cakes for kids who need it. It's important to make sure all kids feel included. The Who Are the Samaritans leaflet activity gets kids thinking about the conflicts between the Jews and Samaritans, and also about conflicts between peoples today. Kids this age have varying knowledge of and opinions about global conflict, and much of what they say is coming from what they hear from their parents and the media. Steer discussion away from any aggressive or abrasive comments by reminding kids that Jesus wants us to break through barriers. Your kids will enjoy the salty thirst and cleansing feeling of water throughout this week's lesson. Jesus is the living water.